No two words strike more fear into the hearts and dreams of cool season lawn owners than the words Poa Annua, other than Bermuda grass and Poa triv, of course. Let's go back to the beginning of the year. Back when our lawns were green and they were thick and they were lush. Ah, those were the good old days. Then, about April, we start noticing all these little white seed heads popping up all over the place. So we decide to mow it. And that seems to make it come back even faster and even make it look worse. And then June, bam, they're all gone. And left behind are the dead spots of where those seed heads used to be. So what do we do now? In this video, I'm going to tell you exactly what I did to get rid of 90% of the Poa problem that I dealt with. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks and some strategies that you can use in your own lawn to return your lawn back to its glory days. Let's get into the video. So before we get started, I think it's super important that you understand, first of all, that we're talking about Poa Annua. I did mention earlier, and I was kind of making fun, Poa triv can be just as challenging as Poa Annua. But Poa Annua is an annual bluegrass, and it comes back every single year, and it makes those little white seed heads that you see all over the place. Poa triv is a little bit different. It spreads by rhizomes and actually grows under the ground, and it is a perennial. So the same control methods that we talk about for Poa Annua do not apply to Poa triv. It's completely different, although they sound the same. They look entirely different as well. So most important thing is make sure you're dealing with Poa Annua and not Poa triv. So like I mentioned, Poa Annua is an annual, so it comes back every single year. And if you have a cool season lawn, yeah, there's not much in the way of control options that we have. You know, you could use a non-selective herbicide and spray it in the springtime, but then you're left with all those dead spots all year long, and you're getting ready to go into the hottest part of the year. So the chances are that that grass seed that you plant to take over for that Poa is not going to work. Another option that you have is maybe to rip out the Poa using maybe a sod cutter and then replacing it with some sod. That would be a great option as well. But the method I'm going to share with you today is exactly what I did in my lawn last fall and had great success getting rid of Poa. So it's important to know Poa germinates in the fall. Okay, and then it lays there and kind of blends in with the rest of your turf until spring, and then that's usually when you notice it. So when you're doing your fall overseed, you think everything's going great, you think there's no Poa, and then bam, like I said, March, April, May, you start seeing Poa just everywhere in your lawn. It's ugly, it's hideous, and then like I said, it dies and then leaves you with all those bare spots everywhere that you sometimes either gets taken over by crabgrass or another weed, but it's just unsightly, and we certainly want to get rid of it. All right, so now the fun part. How do we get rid of it? So if you're watching this video and it's August, now is the go time. Now is the time to start figuring out if you're going to attack Poa. Now's the time to go. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to log on to greencastonline.com. I want you to type in your zip code, and then I want you to look at your soil temperatures. When soil temperatures get around 70 degrees, so when they're falling, from 80 degrees to 75, and they start getting close to 70, that's the time to go. So I mentioned how when Poa germinates, it germinates in the fall. So what we're gonna do to stop Poa is we're gonna put down a pre-emergent before it germinates. And it germinates around that 70-degree mark. So we need a pre-emergent in our soil, watered in before the Poa starts to germinate. So does it matter which pre-emergent you use, dithiopyr or prodiamine? No, I just used prodiamine whenever I did it. And I'll tell you, I split it into two applications. I did one in middle of August, and then I did another one in late October. And the reason why I did that is because I had a yearly maximum that I could apply based on the label. So I'm really looking for a control that's going to get me to about mid-February. So just consult the label and look for your application rates based on your soil type. but we really are just trying to stop that POA from germinating when we get to 70. So the most important thing I can tell you is you have to have that pre-emergent in and watered in before soil temperatures hit 70 degrees. And that's not just in the full sun area. You know, I've got some shade behind me. Naturally, that area is going to have a lower soil temperature than out in the middle of the sun. So it's whenever the coolest temperature in your lawn is going to be 70 degrees. So depending on where you're located, you know, that could be sooner rather than later. Again, make sure you check your soil temperatures for the most accurate reading. So let's talk about how a pre-emergent works. So a pre-emergent is a chemical that you put down in your soil that basically creates a vapor barrier that stops the germination of grass or weeds or whatever it is that you're trying to control. And so actually, it doesn't necessarily stop it from germinating. The grass or the POA will actually germinate. But as it grows, when it comes in contact with that vapor barrier, it will stop it and it'll kill it. What does that mean? We can't put down any grass seed, period. You can't do it. You know, I've got guys that have tried to put down their grass seed earlier in the year, try to get it up, get it mowed, and then say, oh, I'll stop POA later in the year. You can't do that. There's not enough time. The soil temperatures, again, have to be at or below 70 degrees for it to germinate, and there's just not enough time to do both. So you have to make that choice. Are you gonna plant grass seed or not? If you're not, then that's great. We're gonna put down a pre-emergent. No aeration, you cannot aerate, you can't dethatch, we can't do anything that's going to disturb that vapor barrier. So you have to be careful with even some, lawn equipment, heavy lawn equipment that might break up, driving a tractor across your field or, something like that would anything that would cause you to break that vapor barrier. So now that we've got our pre-emergent down before we hit 70 degrees, what do we do next? For the rest of the year, what I want you to do is I want you to do a fertilizer push. I want you to thicken up what turf you've got in your lawn currently, and by fertilizing with about a pound of nitrogen every 30 days, because we're gonna do this on twofold. We're gonna not only try to stop the POA from germinating, we're also gonna make it where if POA were to germinate, it's gotta now compete with an extremely thick, dense, tall stand of turf. We're trying to hedge our bets to try to stop POA from a twofold process. So this is a bottle of prediamine that I've had for a couple years now. Obviously, I've got a 20,000 square foot lawn and I apply a pre-emergent every single year. So you don't necessarily need this big fat jug like this, but something else that I do is I write here on the back, it says pre-emergent crabgrass. I wrote 50 or 70, so going up towards 50 just as a reminder, or falling towards 70. I use a rate of 10 grams per thousand, which gives me 4 months of coverage. So like I talked about earlier, if you were gonna do this into a split app, maybe you do 5 grams before September 1st, and then you would do 5 grams in that mid-October range, which is exactly what I did. So that gives you that 4 months of coverage to make sure that you're completely covered. But I'll leave a link below where you can get this. Again, you don't necessarily need a big jug like this if you have a smaller lawn. I also want to mention a product called ethofumicate. This is called Etho 4SC. Actually, I bought this. It's still got the tape on it. I never even used it. I was planning on, when I originally did this project before last year, I was going to use ethofumicate. I bought this and then I thought, well, I'm not even going to use it because I'm going to do it the right way. So I still have this bottle and I don't know how long it lasts, but I really, honestly, I haven't really heard of good things with this, if it actually works. So I can tell you the pre-emergent route does work 100%. All right, so really quick, I'm gonna leave some links down below to all these products. And I just have to let you know that I do get a little bit of a commission back on some of those if you do happen to use those links. So if you find this video helpful and you wanna support me, support the channel, I would be so appreciative if you would use those links, but you certainly don't have to. You can go out and buy it however you want. Just know that if you do use them, it does support the channel, so greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. So let's talk strategy for a second. So we're getting ready for spring. What are we gonna do? What do we need to be thinking about? So we just came out of winter, we had down our pre-emergent, and the lawn is starting to wake up. I want you to continue to make sure you fertilize, make sure you're mowing tall, and then make sure you're watering appropriately. All three of those will continue to just make sure that we have a thick stand of turf, increasing the competition that POA has to try to, if we had any that didn't get stopped by that pre-emergent. And so then I also want to make you aware of a PGR, so a plant growth regulator. There are two that I have used, one of which I prefer more than the other. This year I used T-Nex, and I really like T-Nex. It works great. I'll tell you that I've used Annua in the past, and Annua is a little bit more expensive, but I like it a lot better. I think it's a lot softer on the turf. You don't get quite as much yellowing. But the biggest advantage you get with Annua is it really suppresses the seed head. So you know that your tall fescue will also go to seed. Annua will help stop and limit some of that, some of the natural processes that the plant goes through for seed head production. But Poa Annua does not like Annua. It almost knocks it out. If you have any, say you have Poa that's not a huge issue and you just want to kind of knock it back, say you didn't do this, this whole process, and you just want to knock out what little Poa you have, Annua will do that. It'll knock it back. It'll keep it low beneath the canopy, so you hardly even see it. And then I also think that just not having those seed head production, I mean, that just sounds logical to me that, if the plant's not producing seeds, then if it's an annual, how can it reproduce the next year? All of those things, all those strategies play a role. So making sure you're fertilizing, watering, and then if you want to use a PGR, so this is the T-Nex. This is the T-Nex that I use, and I use it just kind of generally speaking here. If you're going to use T-Nex, always the first application that you make sure you go out at the half rate. So 0.3 ounces per thousand is the half rate, and then 0.75 ounces would be the full rate. But I love T-Nex. I love it even if Poa wasn't a problem. I love T-Nex. So another strategy you can use is just hand pulling Poa. If you've got just a few plants here and there, say that, that germinated from your pre-emergent and you've reduced 90% of it, if you were able to pull those, if you were able to hand pull what little bit of weeds you have, again, limiting the number of seeds that'll be in your turf, you're going to greatly reduce the population of your Poa over time. So if you follow this pre-emergent strategy, I promise it will get rid of at least 90% of your Poa problem. Just understand that Poa seeds can lay dormant in your turf for several years. So you may have to repeat this, every couple of years to try to knock back the Poa. But if you follow the pre-emergent strategy, I promise you'll be happy. Overall, the best strategy for getting rid of Poa is pre-emergent, and then making sure you have a thick stand of turf so to not give room for the Poa to expand and grow. My name is Devin, the DIY Lawn Coach. Thank you so much for watching the video. I hope you found it helpful. Leave me a comment down below and let me know if you tried this, does it work? And I'd love to hear from you. I can't wait to see you guys in the lawn. Peace.